Welcome, Suzanne Berger.
Thank you.
So you took part in the debate, are we really in a turbulent world? And that implies globalization. Can you give us the characteristics of globalization, please?
Well, I think a simple economic definition of globalization is a world in which there are strong pressures towards a single world market. And we would know we were in a single world market if the price for labor and capital and goods and services was the same everywhere. And of course, today we are not in such a world. Wages are very different for more or less the same work carried out in different places. Even the price of capital is quite different in different countries. But I think the pressures towards such a world are very strong.
We run in circles. That's a fact history shows us, with more and more interdependencies. But how unpredictable is that for the world economy?
I think it's extremely unpredictable. Let's take the first globalization, which was the world between 1870 and 1914, when in fact the levels of cross-border exchange between people, capital, goods and services was as high a proportion of the economy as it was going to ever be again until the 1980s. And on one day, that world and that globalization came to an end. It was the day when Britain declared war, and the First World War broke out. And after the war was over, we did not go back to globalization again. It took until the 1980s. So that was, people believed that that globalization was irreversible too, especially because technology did not reverse. We didn't go back from the telephone to carrier pigeons. We didn't go back from steamships to sailboats. So I think there's a very large element of unpredictability in the system.
How much of an impact the economical decisions a nation makes has on a worldwide scale today?
Well, let's just think about the decision that Great Britain just made. And we can see the enormous turbulence now, not only, I mean, first in financial markets, but let's think about how in every family, English family now, decisions are going to play out about where a family decides to educate its children. I mean, I think the consequences, the way in which that decision by the British population may affect votes for parties like Le Pen in France, like the Dutch parties that are interested. So it's enormous. And what is that? How did that come about? Well, if we think about why David Cameron ever decided to call that referendum, it really seems to have been because of trying to settle accounts within the British Conservative Party. So the decisions, even of a few politicians, can have enormous reverberations.
Let's talk about another country. How damaging would an economic crisis be coming, let's say, from an emerging country such as China, for example, on a global scale?
It would be enormous. If we look at the American economy, we have tremendous deficits, because Americans have consumed more and imported more than they've sold. And those deficits now take the form of treasury bonds and other investments by the, by the Chinese government. Why did the Chinese government decide to invest so much in the United States? Well, I think to answer that question, we have to go back to the Asian financial crisis in 1997, when the Chinese government realized how vulnerable a developing economy can be to crises in financial markets. And in order to protect itself, the Chinese government now has these enormous cushions of cash in the form of investments in U.S. Treasury bonds. imagine that the Chinese government starts withdrawing some of this in order simply to deal with their own domestic economy and trying to get their own domestic economy going again. This would be really quite serious on the side of the American economy. So we are really connected at the hip, as we say, at this point. And you know, a crisis for China has great significance for the American economy as well.
Well, thank you very much, Suzanne Berger, for this interview.
Okay, thank you.